In this video we're going to learn how to use Excel to do basic calculations. Let's start with the example 12 plus 41. Now if we click on cell C3, which is where we want our result to appear, and we start by clicking on equal, and that will automatically alert Excel that we are dealing with calculations. We do 12 plus 41. If we press enter, that will give us the result to be 53. If we want a subtraction, that will be 36 minus 17. Press enter, and that will give us the result to be 19. For the next calculation, equal 136 divided, which is a forward slash, divided by 16, enter, 8.5. Equal again, 17 times is a star, 17 times 23, enter, 391. If we want to calculate 3 to the power 4, which is 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 4 times, we could do it by pressing equal 3. Now to make the power 4, we do a hat, which is obtained by clicking on shift and then 6 to give us a hat, and then we click 4. That's 3 to the power 4. Enter, 81. Let's use all these calculations to do something slightly more complicated. 12 plus 1.96 times 5 divided by the square root of 32. So we do equal 12 plus 1.96 times 5 divided by, and the square root is obtained by using one of the available formulae on Excel, which is SQRT, open the bracket, 32. So that will be the square root of 32. Enter, and that will calculate for us the result. We can use Excel to do more or less the same calculations, but in this case using references. Now if we want to add 12 plus 41, and we want the result in H3, so we could do equal, the 12 is in cell D3, so I press 12, and that will automatically give me the cell reference of 12, plus 41, which is the cell reference E3, so D3 plus E3, the content of D3 plus the content of E3, press enter, and that will give me 53. If I do the same for the rest, so in this case we do 36 minus 17, that would be D4, the content of D4 minus the content of E4. Press enter. 136 divided by, which is in cell D5, divided by the content of cell E5 divided by 16, which is in cell E5, that will give me 8.5. Let's multiply. That's 17 D6 times E6, the same. So in this case, equal 3 to the power, which we've seen how to do, which is shift 6, to the power E7. So D7 to the power E7 will give me 81. If I want to do this calculation using bracket, click equal, so that will be 2, which is D8, times, open the bracket, E8 minus F8, close the bracket, and that will be using cell references. Okay, let's look now at using certain formulae to do calculations. Here's an example where we have few data here, the variable x and the variable y, and we want to calculate certain operations, like for example calculating the sum of x. We use formula in this case, so it is equal SUM, this is the formula for the sum. So if I do SUM, Excel will automatically give me a list of formulae, all of which start with SUM. So I use this one here. This is to add all the numbers. So double click on it, and then I just use my mouse and highlight or select all these figures. That would be the sum of all the values in the X column. Close the bracket, press enter, and I got 197. So this is how I add a string of values. If I repeat it in column Y, I do equal SUM, open the bracket, open the bracket, highlight all the figures, close the bracket, and press enter. If I want to calculate the sum product, i.e. the sum of the multiplication of X and Y, of course I can do it in a long way by doing all the multiplication, 12 times 11, 4, etc. Find all the results individually and then add them up using the sum value. But we could use another formula available in Excel, which is sum product. So if I press equal, sum product, let me make sure that I've written it correctly. It appears here. So sum product of the X values, comma, the Y values, and this is how we do it. And Excel will automatically understand that we are doing the sum of the individual multiplications of 12 times 11, 44 times 23, etc. So if I press enter, I've got the sum product of X and Y. In this case here, we want to calculate the sum squares. So in other words, we take the X squares, we square every single value of X, and then we add them up, sum them. So equal SUM SQ. And this is the one that says return the sum of the squares of the argument. So if I double click on it and then I highlight the X's, Excel will automatically knows that we need to do the squares first and then sum them. So the sum of the squares. So if I press enter, and that will give me the sum of the squares of X. Here in the next example, we need to do the multiplication of X, i.e. multiplying 12 times 44 times 31 times 22, etc. We use the product function, which is equal to product, open the bracket, highlight the figures, close the bracket. Now here it is not the sum, it is the multiplication. So we're not adding, we're multiplying the values of X. So it's going to be a very big number. That's a very big number. Okay. Now this is a slightly difficult things to do. We are asked to do the sum of the difference. In other words, we do 12 minus 11, 44 minus 23, 31 minus 34, etc. And once we find all the individual answers, we add them. We can do it using Excel, except here that the formula doesn't exist automatically. So we need to do something slightly different. So we do equal as if we're going to sum. So it's a sum of the values of X, and we say minus the values of Y's. That's how we do it. But we can't press return because Excel doesn't know how to do things like that. But if you treat it as an array formula, you press Control Shift and then Enter, you will find the result. And notice in the formula now, because we press Control Shift on the keyboard and then press Enter, Excel will enter these curly brackets around the formula to suggest that it's an array formula. So that will end our first video on using Excel for basic calculations.